The first presenter will be Dr. Tarun Madan from Ahmedabad, UN Mehta Hospital.
Dear colleagues, I would be presenting an unusual case of syncope which came to us and how we managed endovascularly. This was a male, 62 years old, who came to us with a history of presyncope and syncope, more at walking and at arm movements. He had dyspnea on exertion. He was hypertensive, non-diabetic. He had on clinical examination unequal arm pulses. Left was more prominent than the right brachial. Left arm pressure was 170 by 100 millimeters of mercury, and the right arm pressure was 94 by 60 millimeters of mercury. So we expected some right upper limb arterial occlusive disease. He had LVH with strain pattern on ECG with normal sinus rhythm. Echocardiography revealed severe aortic stenosis with a gradient of 64 peak gradient. LV functions were normal. PA pressures and MR was insignificant. He had complete blood count which was normal. ESR, CRP and renal functions were normal. LDS was slightly raised in lipids. He underwent a duplex scan of both the upper limb arteries and all the supraaortic vessels. He underwent a CAG and peripheral angiogram subsequently. Coronary angiogram showed double vessel disease in the form of left anterior descending artery and right coronary artery significant disease. So he was scheduled for aortic valve replacement and CABG, but the duplex scan gave us horrifying picture. It showed severe stenosis of the right distal common carotid artery and internal carotid artery at the bifurcation, severe stenosis of the left common carotid artery with insignificant disease of the left internal carotid artery. He showed total occlusion of the right subclavian artery with retrograde flow into the distal part of the subclavian artery via the right vertebral artery, which was filling from intracranial collaterals. Severe stenosis of the left vertebral artery. So he had all four supraaortic vessels which were significantly diseased. So the diagnosis was severe calcific AS, coronary artery disease, peripheral artery disease with all four supraaortic vessels involved. This was the first picture showing catheter in the innominate artery. In the DSA picture, we can see the flush occlusion of the subclavian artery and retrograde flow of the distal part of the subclavian artery by the vertebral artery. Second picture shows the bifurcation of the right common carotid artery significantly diseased. The first one is a normal scene and the second one is a digital subtraction image of the same. Left common carotid, right from the ostium till the proximal 1/3 part had significant stenosis. And the internal carotid artery was just showing a plaque. Left vertebral artery was having a tight 99% stenosis and the left subclavian artery was normal. So now to plan this case, we first thought of opening up the right carotid artery, internal carotid, and then recanalizing the left common carotid artery. This was a pictorial representation of all the disease. We can see the right subclavian, which is totally occluded, right internal carotid at the bifurcation, left common carotid, and the left vertebral artery. So because of the existing aortic stenosis, his presyncope and syncope was accentuated. So right internal carotid artery was tackled first. A 6 millimeter angioguard was parked distal into the straighter part of the right internal carotid artery. After deployment of the angioguard, a 8 by 40 millimeter precise flow stent was deployed in the right internal carotid artery. This stent was post-dilated with the help of an aviator balloon from Cordis. Prior to balloon dilatation, IV atropine was given, pressure dropped significantly, which was managed successfully with normal saline and IV dopamine. No peri-procedural neurological event took place at this part of the step. This shot shows no distal embolization, good intracranial flow. Digital subtraction angiogram showed well-positioned stent and a nicely distal flow. Intracranial shots were also taken which showed nice pictures. In AP projection also. Then the filter was retrieved and we proceeded for the left common carotid artery. Left common carotid artery on duplex scan was showing a stable plaque, so we didn't take a filter. We took a 7 French guiding catheter and then took a 035 Terumo wire which was parked directly into the external carotid artery. And then we took a long self-expanding stent from Abbott, Absolute Pro, 7 millimeter by 100 millimeter. Because the length of the segment was 80 millimeter, 85 millimeter, there is no stent, so we had to take a slightly bigger stent. and precise aorta-ostial deployment was carried out. We have to keep two stents hanging into the arch of the aorta because self-expanding stents, they tend to jump forward. This was post-dilated with the help of a 7 by 40 millimeter OptaPro balloon. Ostium was also dilated properly. This was the final DSA picture which showed a good brisk flow into the distal common carotid artery, and ultimately we have to confirm in all the intracranial shots. This is the pre and post picture. Post-procedure patient course was uneventful. He was discharged after 2 days, no neurological symptoms, routine antiplatelets. 1.5 months clinical follow-up is there, no presyncope so far, and we are planning for aortic valve replacement and CABG. So because of the supraortic disease, the syncope was accentuated. Selective cases of common carotid artery bilaterally we can do in very selected cases. But the proximal common carotid involvement in atherosclerosis is very unusual. Normally it tends to involve the internal carotid artery. But we should be very careful about hyperperfusion syndrome when we are doing bilateral carotid artery stenting. Thank you.
Any questions from the panelists?
What do you think is the risk of hyperperfusion in this patient?
Sir, the right side internal carotid artery stenosis was significant. The left side was not very tight. So the hyperperfusion risk was not very significant. When we have bilateral, very tight string sign, 99% stenosis, the risk of hyperperfusion syndrome is very high. And we had stopped all the antihypertensive drugs 3 days prior to the procedure. So post-operatively, the pressures were lower side, so there was no much risk of hyperperfusion injury.
Could the left common carotid artery be left alone on medical management? And then the patient could have gone for surgery without opening up both the vessels. Because if you had a good circle of Willis, good flow from the right side, that would have been enough to prevent a...
Sir, when we did the intracranial angio of the right internal carotid, it was not filling the left circle of Willis. So I was not very sure that it is giving good intracranial collaterals. That is why we stented the left carotid artery also.
He said he had syncope. Do you think that he has got subclavian stele, which is not yet, not still attended? Because
we are closely following. If he has a symptoms of subclavian stele in future, we would open up the right subclavian artery. Otherwise, there is no indication to open up that. And left vertebral artery we didn't touch because of the opening of all 4 vessels in one go was not suitable.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Tarun.